Okay, cool. 5 past. Let's kick off. Welcome, everybody. For those of you able to join, I hope you're warm. I hope you've got a cup of coffee. This is going to be really, really exciting. And I'm hoping that it's also going to be highly enlightening. I can tell you, I'm very, very excited about this conversation that we're about to have. I'm excited about it because I'm learning. I'm really, really learning. Also beginning to appreciate some of the things that I can do. Might be a little bit frustrated about some of the things I didn't do, but certainly the opportunities of what we are going to be doing. So welcome to the first of our Mogul classes on personal branding and social media. The exciting thing that I'm going to tell you in advance about this is that you're going to ask a lot of questions. You're going to be highly enthused. And what I want to be able to tell you is that we may not get through everything today, but this is going to be a program that we're going to be running effective from the 1st of September. Today, you're going to get a Mogul class on it, which is probably going to be the equivalent of an overview on it. But as we proceed, we will be able to get into more depth about it as we do it in the form of a class. So welcome everybody. I'm not going to go through everybody's name. I see we've got a couple of Tutor Trust folks on board. Ethan's coming on board as well. This is riveting stuff. And you're going to hear from Refilwe. I think a lot of you already do know Refilwe. You're going to hear from her as our mogul today in terms of her ability to be able to give you an in-depth knowledge and understanding of personal branding and social media. It has been highly enlightening for me. So I'm looking forward to the idea that it's going to be highly enlightening for you too. And it's going to be probably in more ways than one life-changing. So over to Refilwe. So welcome, Refilwe. Refilwe is one of the co-creators at ValueEd. You're going to be seeing a lot of her as we proceed. We've also got Ntombi on board here as well, who is also one of the co-creators as well. Who's also one of the co-creators as well. And absolutely, you're going to see a lot of us going through a variety of different other programs, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, Refilwe, welcome. It's a nice cold morning, and I'm sure you're going to make us all warm with a future that we can create for ourselves that I had never, up to my age of 52, even thought about. So I'm really excited and looking forward to it. So over to you.
No, thank you, Vic, and good morning to everyone. I think it's for those of us who are, up, and it's such a cold morning today, but kudos to us, all of us, for getting up. It really is, an interesting topic now, personal branding, and also social media, using social media intentionally now, because, at the beginning it was just created as a platform or medium of communication. If you think about, when Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook back in 2005, all he wanted to do was create a platform for the, university students to then communicate with each other. And it's grown into this, big platform. And also we've seen a lot of other social media platforms then, spring up. So it's a great medium of communication. But it's also a great medium of building your own personal brand, especially with, where we're moving, the future that we're moving into. Everything is going digital. Everybody's talking about the fourth industrial revolution. So literally our entire lives are going to live on the digital platforms, right? So it's very important to start being intentional about how you use your social media, and then also building that personal brand, whether you're a company or an individual. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So firstly, to start off, what is personal branding? Jeff Bezos, I think eloquently said it well. Branding is what people say about you when you are not in the room. That is basically what your personal brand is. When you leave the room, what do people say about you? What are you known for? The impression that you've left, looking at identity, your image, intention, integrity. And according to brandyourself.com, personal branding is about managing your name. Even if you don't have a business, we now live in a world where there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and everything is now permanent. You have semi-permanent records on Google. So you have to be intentional about having control over that and managing your name, because at the end of the day, we control is an illusion, but I think the one thing that you can control is your name, or the one thing that you do have is your name and your reputation, and that personal brand, what people say about you when you leave the room.
So Refilwe,
Yes.
we're going to jump in and out, and what we'll do, just as a process for everybody to, which I didn't mention, is that Refilwe and I will have a chat for the next half an hour, and then we'll have everybody jump in. So if you've got a pen and paper and you've got some questions, and I'm sure you're going to have questions, if you don't, I'm going to be very surprised. Please jot them down, and then we can actually, for the last half an hour, go through them. But I just want to touch on a word that you used, which is actually very important to me at the present moment, having learned this, and this is the word intentional. You need to
Yes.
be intentional about how you want people to start perceiving you. I think most of us, including me, have never been that. We are who we are. We step outside. We we make life go on as it goes on, but we've not been intentional about how we are perceived. And I think that's a very powerful word.
Absolutely, Vic. When in my coaching, I always say you have to start visualizing your highest self.
Wow.
And then start showing up as that person, right? So for the youngsters in the room, especially, if whether you want to go into corporate, whether you want to go into entertainment, whatever it is that you want to become in life, you have to start visualizing that person. So if it means looking at who's already doing that, and then start showing up as that person. So, and that is the intention, that's the way the intention podcast. I don't think a lot of us really know, there's no blueprint exactly as to say, do this, do that, do this, do this. But you can follow what those that you aspire to be like have done, or how they look, or whatever the case is. So intention is very important. And then moving forward, looking at what the importance of personal branding, in this day and age that that we're living in, this cultural shift and evolving job market, it's very helpful and necessary to stand out. Your personal brand is the unique combination of your skills and your experiences. And right now, research has shown that 70% of employers actually use social media to screen candidates during the hiring stage. And then 43% of employers use social media to check on their current employees. So a lot of companies now have, social media policies, they have brand policies, because essentially whether you have signed up for it, but you are a brand ambassador for the company that you work for. So, my association with Valued, I am now a brand ambassador of Valued, whether I've signed up for that or not, So whatever it is I say outside of, in my spare time, on my social media, the fact that I have been associated with Valued, it's very important that I represent the organization accordingly. I can't now, we are in a space of, personal mastery, especially for youth and all of that. I cannot now go off and say other things that are contrary to that message or to that brand of Valued. So employers are starting to use social media, and I think it's an important thing, because a lot of young people, I work with youth, and I know that they don't really think about it, how employers use social media. I recall, just an example, last year, I have some of my learners on WhatsApp, for example, and one of them posted something about their salary. And I literally went to them and said, take that down before HR sees it, because it was a negative comment, about their salary. And if somebody else had seen it, because they work for this organization, it says something about the organization. So before HR sees that, take that down. And that's something that people don't really think of. That people are looking, your employers are looking before you even come to the interview, and then when you are in the company, they're constantly also checking your social media. So that is also the one of the important things about intentionally building that brand.
So one of the things I just wanted to add here is that I think when you talk about the intentionality of your brand and the intentionality of what you're perceiving yourself to be in the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years time, and there are different stages that you're at there, the implications of what you do today are going to come back and bite you later. So if employers are doing reference checks, they're doing reference checks on everything that has ever appeared on your social media. Scary.
Absolutely.
So starting today, starting this morning, be intentional about what you put on, because the interesting thing is that if you're talking about employers using social media as a means of referencing, that's scary. Because back in the day, the way references were simple. The company would say, or the person who's recruiting you would say, please give us 3 references, right? And what you typically did is you went and got your best 3 references. You went to your previous company, you got the reference of the boss you got on with, and you were very clear to them. You said to them, please don't call, this person, because me and this person didn't get on. You went to your best friend, you got a reference from them, and then you got a member of the family who you got a reference from, right? And those were your references. That was it. And that's all companies could go on. Now, they don't even need you. They don't even need to ask you about references. They will just go and find out your entire history and your behavioral history and what you've said in one foul swoop through all the social media platforms that you're on. And the algorithms that they have today, they will be quickly able to say, what kind of risk are you to being employed in that organization? Scary.
Absolutely. It is scary. It really, really is scary. I mean, especially because we all, in this day and age, we have smartphones from the age of 12, So, and you don't think at 12, you don't even know what you want to be or think of that, what company you want to work for. You're just going about your life, tweeting and posting on, Instagram and Facebook, and sharing your opinion with the world. And that could come back and either positively impact the opportunities or negatively impact those opportunities. So what do people find when they Google you? Because I think that is, Google is the now go-to platform for anything, for research, but also to find, references, even if it's not just for employment, because employers will go to a specific company, they'll use a specific company for that. But whether you meet a girl or a guy at a bar and they give you a name and you want to check them out before you ask them on a date, chances are you're going to Google them. When you meet somebody at a function, an event, they give you their business card, the first thing you're going to do is go and Google them, to see what are they about, what is it that they do. So the worst case scenario, I wanted to start with the worst case scenario because we've seen opportunities, people losing opportunities because of what they've said on their social media. So on the right, we have this lady who was appointed, to the South African tourism, but because of comments that she had said, her opinion that she had shared years ago, it negatively impacted on this, So it's about being, whatever that it is you say, it can come back to bite you, it can come back to either positively impact you or negatively impact you. So these are the negative elements that we've seen, Kevin Hart lost out on a great opportunity. He was going to be the first Black man to host the Oscars. That was history making, and he lost out on that because of, all the controversial jokes that he had made 10 years ago. And then
so, just on those two specifically, what is interesting about these two is that they lost their opportunities as a result of what they had said with Kevin Hart. If I remember correctly, it was about 7 or 8 years prior.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? And with this lady, it was about 3 years or 4 years prior. So just on this intentionality of how you present, remember, folks, every single time you tweet, every single time you send a WhatsApp message, every single time you go onto the social media platform, you reflect who you are in the manner in which you say things, in the tone in which you say things, and in the jokes that you crack, in the jokes that you share. These are all sorts of things that are going to come back. So with the Kevin Hart story, it was his jokes on gay people and the gay community that came back to bite him 7 years later. Now, interestingly enough, at the time, people were not as sensitive about how you reflect yourself in terms of your opinion about the gay community. As a matter of fact, it was just the gay community then. I don't think it had extended itself to the LGBT community, etc. So he, as a comedian, cracked jokes that people in audiences laughed about, right?
Yeah.
Which you just can't do today. And the same principle here on this side with the lady who wanted to go into tourism and was cracking jokes or making comments about tourism in Kenya. So the intentionality of how you want to present yourself is going to be as microscopic as editing and muting the kind of words that you send out on social media, and that includes WhatsApp, people, the sharing of content in WhatsApp, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, no, that's just what I wanted to add to that, because when we're talking about personal branding, and when you finish this bit, I just want to add to that. It's very important for people to understand that what you project out into the world as to who you are in terms of your persona has to also tie in with what you do behind closed doors.
Absolutely, absolutely, Vic. What I think we can't just sit here and talk about what people actually see in terms of social media, but also what WhatsApp and all of that. We've seen opportunities. We've recently seen Bobby Mutahu get suspended from Kaizer Chiefs because of a video that went viral, and I'm pretty sure that video was just sent amongst friends. And then there's always that one friend, who will say, I'm going to put this up on social media. We saw the minister as well during lockdown, having a private lunch with friends when everybody else was supposed to be sitting at home. And then there's the friend went and posted that on his private social media. But obviously then it just went, got out of control. So it doesn't just, extend to, it extends also to your personal space as well, or what you would call your private, your WhatsApps, your messages, because now people can take that and spread it all over. So I think the message here is also to always try and to always operate from a positive intention, operate from the best part of yourself, because anything negative will always come back, even if it's just sharing your opinions or cracking jokes, like Kevin Hart did. It will always come back and have a negative result as well. On the good side, we've seen a lot of people flourish and get great opportunities as a result of social media. If you look at Elsa, who just went viral, and all she was doing, from Kenya, all she was doing was making jokes with her cell phone, and posting them on her social media, on her Twitter and her Instagram. And that, positive message of cracking jokes resonated with people. And she just went viral. She's getting great opportunities now with brands wanting her to join in their message. She's getting international recognition as well. As you can see, she was, featured on CNN. We've seen the chicken licking advert, where those who kept us entertained during lockdown, were featured on this ad. And, I'm pretty sure they've made, a little cash, so that they can go and enjoy themselves. But also it's that thing of operating from a positive intention. All they were doing was making, videos to entertain people during lockdown. I think one of the people who was featured was a young man, the South African white guy who was dancing I mean, it's as easy as that, doing something that he enjoys and putting it on his TikTok. So it's just, if you operate, I think, from a positive intention, you always have a positive outcome. Obviously, if you operate from a negative intention, will have a negative outcome as well. And then the other thing also about, you know, branding is, it doesn't have to be a business, like we said, or, you know, have a big personality or trying to be an entertainment personality, but finding that one thing that you then say, I want to be known for this. So I think a great example of that is Greta Thunberg, you know, who is a young global warming activist. And that is all she's, you know, that's what brought her to the global stage. Her activism for global warming, you know, her message, what she was saying to the grown-ups, you know, as a young person, saying, you know, we need this world. When you leave, we need it to still be around for us. So, and I think Vic, you and I have had this message as well about, you know, starting young as well, you know, in terms of wanting to build your brand and the reaping the rewards later on. You know, starting young is always always a good idea, but
No,
also it doesn't have to be grand. You just have to focus your energy on that one thing, and that could be the thing that brings you all the success, or what is it you're trying to intentionally do with your brand.
so yeah, if I can just jump in there and say something that I think, you know, the folks on should really spend this weekend thinking about, because over the last 6 months, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. Now, we're caught up in a pandemic, and currently you're probably listening to, you know, the majority of conversations being held around the negativity of the pandemic. And without reservation, any pandemic is negative.
Yeah.
There are losses of lives, and there are great tragedies within families. The other thing that I want you to look at is, what are the opportunities now? Now, you know, there's a couple of things that you've said, Refilwe, which I think I just want to emphasize. The first thing that has happened, which we may not know now, but you will know when you look back on it, is that the world is no longer the same. There has been what I call a collapse of the old status quo in many ways, right? I mean, the obvious ones are things like what's happened with Black Lives Matter and the racist movement and the changes that have taken place there. But there are smaller things. The smaller things are that the big brands or the big companies or the big organizations or personalities and celebrities have all been leveled off, simply because access is now available to anyone and everyone in terms of their ability to become what they want. Before, for access, you needed large piles of money, somebody to probably you know, promote, influence, or position you. You needed, you know, a brand, or you needed things that were not at your immediate disposal and couldn't be shared evenly. The digital online platforms of today enable, in this is a great picture here, enable anyone to become who they want to be. And the core thing here that you've mentioned is, one, intentionality. But the exciting thing is that you can become anything based on what you love, what you hope for, what
Yeah.
you've experienced, and what you want to become in terms of the skills that you have. That's never happened in life before. You needed to have a CV, you needed to go for interviews, you needed hopefully for somebody to recognize you, you needed to, you know, become something so that somebody could make you something. That's gone. You are the master of your destiny, more ways than one, that the digital platform has created. So I want you to think about that, because these people here, and there's a lot more which we'll talk about a little bit later on, are people who utilize the social media platform to start defining intentionally who they want it to be. And when we're going through this now, I want you, if you've got the opportunity, to go into YouTube and just Google the word, or just YouTube the word, or search the word cooking, and then see how many cooking elements come up on that. They are never ending. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cookers, of people who are doing cooking. Then ask yourself the question, look at how many views they get, etc., etc. Then ask yourself the question as to how is it that there are so many people doing the same thing and also being successful based on the number of views. So just based on this, there's massive opportunity to present yourself in a manner in which you can become the best version of who you want to be intentionally, and compete with anyone else in the world.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right, Vic. And, on the note that you made about, the way you want people to view you, and there's so many opportunities. And I think what the digital platform has created for us is now there's, you no longer just have a flat sea view on the table, but it's a 360 view of who you are, as an individual. Because also, if you are then looking for a job, they're not just interested as well on your qualification or your skills and all of that, but your overall persona, and then also when it comes to then having those opportunities for yourself, people can easily go and type, like you just said, cooking, people can also go and Google and say digital creators, or, an Excel expert, so whatever comes up then. So the digital platform is creating those opportunities to say, okay, this is how you need to market yourself. So if somebody goes and looks for an Excel expert or a YouTuber, a tech YouTuber, whatever, you want to then be the person that comes up. So the next slide, I looked at, I think, and this is what a lot of people don't do. And I hope after the session, you guys will also take a moment to actually go and Google yourself and then see what comes up. People think it's ridiculous, but I Google myself at least every second month, because I just want to make sure that I still have somewhat of control of what then shows up about my name. So if you go on Google and Google Refilwe Digoamaje, which is interesting because there's about 5 Refilwe Digoamajes that I know of. We spell our Refilwe the same way and our surname is spelled the same way, but I'm the one that comes up all the time. But that's because I'm intentional about that. So, being in control of what comes up, and that is obviously, what I do, my company, and then, my when it comes to the pictures as well, the pictures that I have put up on my social media, but then also looking at then what is associated with you. So I went to the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy, and a lot of what comes up is obviously the association with the school that comes up. And then when it comes to, just where you get more viewership, so the SABC, the interviews that you then do, those are the things that will always come up, right? Also, when you look at somebody who hasn't been intentional about it, which is Vic, and I'm glad you have now started being intentional, because the first thing that comes is vicrankin.com, and you now have control over that narrative. You have your blog, you have your videos, so if somebody were to Google you, then that's the first thing they will go to, and you have then control over that. Now, what shows that you haven't always been intentional about is on the picture side, because then all these pictures, it's things that come up in terms of association. So I believe this picture is from your, vicrankin.com, but this is from your YouTube video with me, actually. And this is from your platform. Everybody else, I mean, I don't know if you know these people, but I don't think so. This is your son.
I don't know that person on the right-hand side either at the bottom. Oh, is that my son?
Yes, that's your son. But you see, so it's just making sure when you Google yourself, what actually comes up, who are you associated with and all of that.
There's actually a point I want to make here, and I'm going to band about ages here. And it's important for everybody that's on board. I'm 52 and have been unintentional about my representation of my brand as a person and as a persona, right? And this is the outcome that you get. Refilwe, you're 26, right?
Yes.
You have been intentional for the last probably 5 or 6 years, and this is what you've gotten. Now, the remarkable difference here is that what is perceived about you, if you look at the pictures of who you are, et cetera, if anyone was to do a Google of you, they immediately begin to start getting an impression of who you are prior to, you know, to even having met you. And that's the thing I think you know, as young people, you need to realize the age that you're living in. It's fantastic. But the challenge now is that people don't have to meet you to know who you are. There's just enough out there that they can gather. You know, what typically used to happen before is, if any of you know LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, you've got a persona that looks very professional. You've got this picture that looks very professional. You say all these wonderful things about the things that you are doing and have done, and it looks very, you know, above board and you know, intentional. But then when you go to your Twitter page and you go to your Facebook page, and some of the pictures that you've put up on WhatsApp, etc., it takes a, you know, a completely different story. You know, you're tweeting, you're using language that's inappropriate, you're sending pictures that are inappropriate. And the challenge in my age, there were no algorithms that could bring the two together. The only way you could know Vic is if you asked me about who I am. If you asked me, do I smoke? And I said no, and there was no way of you knowing, because I took pictures on an analog camera and they're sitting at home. Whereas today, anyone can take a picture of you. You can walk down the street and there are cameras that are recording you in every spot that you go. So if you say, I don't smoke, and they do an algorithmic check on you in the background and see you doing X, Y, and Z, then you're not being authentic. And from that, they make a decision that this person is not an authentic person. So I just want to add to that. And the reason why I used the ages was that to show that in a short space of time, Refilwe has been able to create a persona of herself that me at 52 have to start doing now. So this doing your personal brand with intentionality has long-term implications in terms of how you're perceived.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right, Vic. And I think I like, you know, the fact that you said, you know, you mentioned authenticity, because it has to link up. You know, you can't be prim and proper on LinkedIn, but your Instagram is another story. And we've had a lot of those moments, those people, you know, I even know you know, at work where, you know, you meet the person, your colleague, and you work with them. And then you go on their Twitter and it's like, wait, is this you? You know, and it's just now a whole 180 persona of the person. So authenticity is a big part of it, you know. And we're not saying, you know, be prim and proper all the time. I'm not prim and proper all the time. I'm 26 years old. But, you know, when you go to my WhatsApp, you may see me maybe having a glass of wine or whatever, but I'm still authentic to who I am and what I want, the way I want people to perceive me. You know, a lot of time I always say to my older colleagues and say, you know, you must remember that I'm still 26 and my happy dance is going to be different from your happy dance. For example, you know, when a certain song comes on, I'm more likely to dance to it than you are. So, and that's just part of the being authentic to who I am. But that has to link up, you know, there can't be a mismatch because of the different platforms that you use.
Yesterday, we talked about choices and the
Yes.
implications of choices and the paths that people take in terms of choices. So those of you who've heard the module on choices, this is where we're going with this. You know, when you look down the years, unfortunately, when you get to my stage, the wheel has completely turned, in the sense that the theory about what goes around comes around is actually very, very true. So what you start off sowing the seeds of is what you're actually going to harvest later on. I know of people who have made the unfortunate mistake of doing certain things that have impacted the perception of teachers and principals at their schools, and they have lost out on certain things. And also when you carry that onto post-school, whether it's tertiary or otherwise, and also when you carry that onto where you're going with regards to your working career. So it's important to start at the beginning, but as you said, prior to that, it creates opportunities for you as well. Because if you do it with intentionality and authenticity, the explosion is massive. It doesn't matter what it is that you do. That's why I said go into cooking and see cooking, because some people say, yeah, but I like this. And you know, before, in my world, if you wanted to express yourself in cooking, the only way you could do that was to open a restaurant. To open a restaurant, you needed capital, you needed to find a place. It's a hard work. Today, you just need a kitchen in your house and a camera, and Bob's your uncle.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
that's the excitingness about being able to do what you authentically love.
Yes. So, looking at, benefits of creating your personal brand, firstly, it allows you to self-manage your life and then stop depending on others to do it for you. Your personal brand helps you make the most of what you've got to offer. And this is where, what you've been saying, Vic, about doing the things that you love. I think that's the best part about, personal branding. We are moving into the gig economy right now where you will no longer be tied to one company or one organization, but you can literally do what you love and do it for multiple companies. So if what you love is creating videos, you can literally create videos for 5 clients or whatever the case is. So in my case, for example, I love coaching. I love coaching young people. So instead of being tied down to one company and working for that one organization, I can have 5 clients that I meet with, the kids from this organization on this week, and next week is this organization, and the following week is this organization, and still be able to charge the same amount that I would have gotten paid from that one salary. So it's also creating wealth for myself, doing what I absolutely love. So that is the best, I think, of creating your own personal brand, because you get to do what you love. And just where the world is shifting as well, gig economy, no longer being just tied down to one organization, and you can do that with multiple other companies. It gives you permission to be yourself. Like I said, you gain confidence, because now, one, you have control over other people's perception of you. So I can boldly walk into a room, because if they've already Googled me, I know exactly what they found, and it's things that I wanted them to find, because that's what I put out there. It distinguishes you from the competition as well. As much as Vic is saying, go onto YouTube and find, videos about people cooking. Chances are, when you go into every single one of those, there's a distinct element to it. So somebody could be cooking, but they're making Italian food.
Yep.
Somebody could be cooking, and there's one of my favorites YouTubers is a gentleman in Russia, and all he does is like literally home cooking, home manly cooking, and he speaks Russian, and he has over 4 million subscribers and viewership. And it's like, I'm pretty sure half of these people don't understand what he's saying, but he's being authentic to himself. All we really need to know is that the food is cooked anyway, or cut this part and not that part. And then you get to build credibility, because you're constantly building on that brand, and you're intentionally doing it, and you're consistent about it as well. You build credibility. So when you walk into, when you go to an interview, or you're meeting a potential client, whatever the case is, they've already, maybe Googled you, so they can see, oh, you've worked with this brand, you worked with this brand. So you're building that credibility, you're building yourself as the thought leader in that topic, or whatever the case is. And you get to showcase your speciality as well. And chances are, and we've seen this a lot with the digital creators, the what do you call them, the influencers, they're doing a lot of collaborations, especially the YouTubers in the makeup space. They do a lot of collaborations, and that is supporting each other, because what it does is also you create a community around what it is that then you specialize in, or your niche. So you get to collaborate with those people, support each other and all of that, and then you leave your mark in the world. Earlier on we spoke about Mrs. Rankin, who's great, phenomenal woman. But if you then go and Google, it's the company that she's associated with. So being intentional, what Vic is now talking about, being intentional about, now starting his own personal brand, because when you leave this world also, you want to leave your mark. When people, years from now, your great-great-grandchildren want to go and Google you, say, oh, you always talk about grandpapa, or whatever the case is, what did he do, or their friends. You're leaving your mark essentially. So they'll know that, yeah, granddad started this whole, organization called Value Ed, and look at his videos, this is what he used to do, and this is who he worked with, and all of that. So it's all about leaving your mark without being associated with somebody else. So, I work for, FedEx Express, which is a great brand, but it's not mine. It was started by Fred Smith. So if all you can find about Refilwe and what I'm pushing is FedEx, it's not really my mark. It's not something that I'm leaving, or, what's mine. So it's also about that, when you leave this world, what is then left of you? What mark did you leave? And then it also helps you to connect to your target audience, because then you're intentional about it. You focus all your energy on that, then you have an audience and you build on that audience. And essentially that audience is the one that's going to help you create the wealth that you want to create for yourself and those who come after you. And that links to focusing your energy as well. Vic, do you want to add on?
No, absolutely. I think this is a phenomenal page. When I was saying earlier on that the world has changed and that everybody has now got access, the only difference, or and access, when I say access, I mean almost free access. One of the interesting things that always fascinates me about truly appreciating the power that's now in your hands. I was just thinking, if back in the day, before the online platform capability kicked in its size, if you wanted to open up a restaurant, or you liked clothes, you wanted to open up a clothing store, you wanted to become an Oprah Winfrey, there was a whole lot of processes you needed to go through to get to that. The interesting fact is that the total number of people who use YouTube is 1.3 billion people that come on. Now imagine there are 300 shops in Sandton City, only 300 shops, right? But almost 5 billion videos are watched on YouTube every single day. 5 billion. That means if you got up tomorrow morning, did a YouTube video of yourself, stuck it onto YouTube, try it. The chances of it being viewed are very high, very, very high, which means there is now a possibility and an ability to start producing things and creating things and reflecting things that, to your point, leave a mark, that, to your point, connect with the target audience that is linked to what your passion is, that also gives you the credibility to be able to start building who you are over a period of time. And there was a story being told not too long ago about somebody who loved travel, right? And all she started doing was and not even traveling. She was doing it from her laptop, talking about certain countries in the world that she had never been to. She was just doing research and saying, this is what I know about this country. This is what I know about that country. This is what I've researched about that. And she put a camera, a phone in front of her, just went through that process. Eventually, what started happening is that, hotel chains, luggage, these, companies that make suitcases, etc., started sponsoring her to actually go to these places and start producing and networking their products. The marketing game of what used to be big TV is gone. There's an interesting statistic here saying that in the next 5 to 10 years, right, TV is going to reduce, that's normal TV, is going to reduce by over 45% in terms of viewerships. Where are people going? To instant capabilities of watching what they want on demand, i.e. the Netflixes, the YouTubes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in other words, you can become your own Oprah Winfrey without needing a whole entire cast of people who are, cameras left, right, and center, et cetera, et cetera. So I just find this thing so amazing that the opportunities for young people to go out there and start creating who they want to be is phenomenal. Mahlatsi, I saw your question. I think we'll answer. I'll get Refilwe to answer that question. But yeah, I think I'm really excited. The more I think about this, the more excited I get. I just think, the future is bright.
I think it's all exciting, and I think for us young people, we were born just at the right moment. And it would be just such a, you know, disservice to ourselves to not utilize these opportunities. And, you know, you know, talking about, you know, using these platforms, I think a lot of what stops a lot of people is thinking that I have to have the right resources or whatever the case is. You know, when it comes to YouTube, I started my YouTube channel earlier this year, and I don't even have a camera. You know, when I do my interviews, the interviews that I've done with you was, you know, this terrible laptop camera. And then there's moments where I've also used my cell phone. So I think the whole point of it is also just to start, you know, like that lady did, instead of waiting and saying, I need to save up and go and travel to these countries and then talk about them. No, she researched, she used the resources that she had at that moment. And then everything else just unfolds, you know, the more you create, the more you're more consistent about it, and whatever the case is, you know. A lot of the major blogs right now were started 3 years ago, you know. A lot of the YouTubers that we see, especially in South Africa, I think one of the biggest YouTuber, you know, and, you know, I stand corrected, is Mihlali. And she started, you know, her channel on her laptop while she was still in high school, just doing makeup tutorials, because that's what she loved, music, makeup tutorials. And now, you know, if you look at her latest, you know, you should go and look at her latest video and her first video. You can see the contrast in that, where you can see that the resources were not really there, but she's been able to build that platform over time. I think it's been over 5 years now, you know, 4 or 5 years of creating this platform. And also not looking at it from a, you know, an instant thing as well. It's not going to be an instant, like anything.
Nothing is instant. You plant a seed.
Absolutely.
It must grow. Nothing is instant.
Nothing. And the exciting thing is that our, you know, our value add community is relatively very young. And this is a great opportunity to say, start these things, figure out what it is that you enjoy, what it is that you like, write that blog, start that YouTube channel, you know, do those TikTok videos, whatever it is that you know, you love doing. The most paid YouTuber in the world, guys, I can't believe this. The most paid YouTuber in the world started, I think it's 10 years old, if not younger, but he just started literally doing videos of toys. So his parents would buy him toys and he would unwrap the toy and talk about it. And literally he's the most paid because that's all he does. The parents would leave their children on the couches and say, watch this kid. Then they would say, Mommy, I want this toy. So then the toy brands then started sponsoring him, and then the ads and all of that. And it's just a ripple effect, basically.
So the biggest statistic that has completely collapsed what was the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things is that the viewers who view anything online 3 times more likely to view what they view online out of interest than whether you are famous or whether you have got a lot of money. Now, before, people used to only watch at movies famous people, right? Unfortunately, what's happening is that, well, fortunately, actually, what's happening is that you're finding famous people now coming onto YouTube, onto Instagram, because they're realizing that their mantle of who they are is beginning to diminish quite heavily as a consequence of what is happening with regards to other people. You're 3 times more likely to watch something that is of interest than of something that is based on somebody being famous. That's why the Paris Hiltons and even the Kardashians and all these things are beginning to die over time because that's gone. People are now wanting to watch what's of interest. Okay, let's open up to questions. There are a couple of questions that that have come up, which we can. There's one on what are the do's and don'ts of posting on Twitter and Instagram.
You know, the funny thing about Twitter and Instagram, you know, posting, or it goes back to anything that you do in life, right? So for me, anything that I would post before I tweet something is what, or Instagram. I mean, let me say even on Instagram, before I post a picture, I always say, what will my mother say if she sees this picture? And it's as simple as that. If
that's what we used to say in my generation too.
No, but even today, I swear to God, I always say, what will my mother say if she sees this picture? Because she's my conscience, she's that person, that voice in me. So it's either what will my mother say, what will Mom Oprah say, or what will my boss say if I post this picture? And it's just as simple as that. So even on Twitter, before I tweet something, whether, if I'm talking about work, for example, sometimes you have a frustrated day at work and you just want to go and rant about it. I want to go on Twitter and talk about my boss this or the work this or whatever. If they see it tomorrow, what are they going to say? What are the consequences that I'm going to have to face? So honestly, it's just as easy as that. Before you post something, or before you, whatever it is, engage in a topic or anything like that, what will my mom say? What will my boss say? What will my child say about this if they were to see it? What will my friends say? So it's just having that good old conscious voice in your head that just says don't do it, because you know that if whoever it is that you respect, if they see it, it's not going to land well. So that is honestly my advice, going back to operating from a positive intention all the time, because the energy that you put out there is the energy that you're going to get back. So if whatever it is that you're posting, there's a positive intention about it, then what you're going to get is a positive reaction to it. Whatever it is that you're tweeting, if it's from a negative intention, the response that you're going to get is a negative response. We've seen people on Twitter, somebody will post a picture and they'll say something negative about it, thinking, oh, people are going to laugh and go, ha, ha, ha. And they get the opposite reaction of what they were hoping for. People comment and say, what the negatively as well, to say, how dare you, or whatever the case is. So always being conscious of the intention. I think intention is very important, social media, but also generally in life as well. Whatever it is that you say at your kitchen table, my friends and I these days, it's gotten to a bad point because we're all building our brands, and our platforms are getting bigger and bigger. So even when we're just chilling watching a movie and we want to say something that is not nice these days, people are very sensitive about, we literally say to each other, you can't say that anymore. It doesn't matter that it's just us, kitchen table talk. There's no such thing as kitchen table talk anymore. You can't call people certain things or whatever the case is, because then you become accustomed to that, and then you say it on your social platforms when people are listening. So all I'll say is just operate from a positive intention.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think you've nailed it there. The do's and don'ts is just operate from a positive intention, and just assess what it is that you're about to say. By the way, your opinion doesn't have to go to everybody. This is another thing, unfortunately, about Twitter. Why it is that you would want to express your opinion to people you just don't know is just remarkable. There are positives about it and there are negatives, but I always wonder why people want to spread something to the whole wild world to people they just don't know, and then get surprised when the whole wild world comes back and beats you up based on your opinion. So just understand what it is that you're trying to do, and why you're trying to do it, because that's the intentionality part.
Yes. Patricia says, besides teaching, I enjoy modeling. Any advice? So my thing is, I think the greatest part that we've said about social media and all these digital platforms is you can just start. So, you enjoy teaching and you're currently, you're a teacher, but take your pictures, take your pictures. We've seen a lot of influencers, the Instagram influencers, Instagram models, as they call them now. And all they started really was just taking pictures. So you just take enough good quality pictures with your modeling, or, you take your videos, and then you just consistently put them up. And then you build that following. And then when you reach a certain amount of following, then all these brands as well start seeing you. So I think the social media, the influencer app, it requires you to have like 1,000 followers, for example, on Instagram and Twitter. So once you're consistently building that image, your brand, the modeling, and you reach 1,000 followers, you can start approaching these brands, because then they post there that we wanting to do this campaign, we need a model, or we need, somebody, whatever it is. Then you just start approaching them. But I would just say start, really, just start taking pictures with your phone. do your poses, your Tyra Banks, whatever the case is. Get yourself a ring light for 300 rands, you know, in Randburg. Just start, literally.
And to your point, it's as simple as that. I mean, I think we are still caught up in that generational space where one thinks that there's something that they need to do. You need to build a business plan. You need to hand it in. You need to start a PowerPoint presentation about, no, no. Take pictures, get yourself onto Instagram, start telling people what your intentionality is. I am modeling, and be specific. The more you can home into the type of modeling, the more you can be more specific. So I'm interested in modeling African clothing, or I'm interested in modeling evening wear, or I'm interested in but start. And the process of starting is laying the seed. So think about it. What I do every day now is I think about the process of just putting seed under a bed. That's it.
Yes.
And in time, it will begin to come into the fruition that we're looking for. Same thing with you, Gugu. You know, start going and speaking to young people. Record the things that you are saying with young people. Post the things that you're saying with young people. Get them, because remember, the other thing about technology, folks, is that what you feel today, the fact that we think about, I know you probably won't remember this, but let me remind you. In the early 90s, when there were no cell phones, right? When cell phones, MTN came in, there were only certain places you could use your cell phone. Like 1 or 2 places in Santon, 1 or 2 places. Oh, yeah. There was no way from Joburg to Durban you could use your cell phone because there were no poles. There were no MTN connection poles. So the point I'm saying is that as you look at technology today, think of roads. If you go back 50 years, roads were not everywhere, right? So there were certain places you couldn't even get to because there was no road. So technology, as you progress with it, is going to progress. So where you're finding that in townships and in communities where they are today, maybe no access to the digital platform, tomorrow it's going to be like water. It's going to be a commodity.
Absolutely.
Right? So start thinking about what you're doing today, but don't worry about what tomorrow is going to look like, and say, oh, but I've got these limitations. You know the old story about this is a story they used to tell about people who came from overseas into Africa, and they looked around and there were 2 companies. One of them wanted to sell shoes, and they looked around and they said, hey, you know what? It doesn't look like we can sell shoes in Africa because everybody's walking around barefoot. And then another company came along and landed here and said, hey, what an opportunity. Everybody's walking around barefoot, so therefore we can sell shoes, right? So it's the perspective that you have. Don't look at it at the fact that because it's not there now, you can't still do something, because you can do something because it's not there now. So start. Just start. Forget the business plans. Those you can work along as you go away. The days of having to present a PowerPoint business plan and understand financials, and that will happen as you progress. Start with intentionality. Build your brand. Understand who you want to be, what you want to produce. Use the digital platforms to be able to get yourself out there. It's free. There's a young man called, his name will come to me. He was sitting in a taxi. He's 17 years old. He's just developed an app that enables you to do calculations in a taxi for the amount of money that you need to get change on when you're in a taxi. And he was being interviewed on TV on radio saying, but how did you do this? He says, no, I got into a taxi. I keep hearing people fighting about change and how much they need to pay and this, that, and the other. And I developed an app. And then he said, wow, is the app up? Yes, it's up and running. I'll actually, if I just remind me, Refilwe, I'll send it to everybody in terms of the link. And then they said to him, how much did it cost? He says, no, it cost me $20. Do the maths. Cost him something like less than 400 rands.
Absolutely.
To not only produce the app, but to download. Because you know what he did? He had no idea of coding, never heard of it. He went into YouTube and started learning how to code. So he developed the app from coding entirely himself, young man, 17 years old from the township. And now he's got this thing up. And then they said to him, so what are you going to do financially? He says, to your point, I need 1,000 downloads. And after 1,000 downloads of this app, all of a sudden I'm up and away. I can go to advertising companies, marketing companies, etc., etc.
Absolutely. I think a great example, another great example, and this is, especially for Google, who says she wants to coach. I think, Nicolette Mashile, she started just taking videos with her phone, talking about financial advice, and she would just say, savings and investment and buying your first house. And there were literally 5-minute videos that she would just post on the social media as Nicolette Mashile. And then it changed to Financial Fitness Bunny, as the brand, as the viewership and she started growing. She just now launched a book, she's on TV, being featured, but all you have to do is just start, while you have that job, just start with what you like. With my coaching, I used to write to my primary school, just to say, I want to come talk to the kids, and at assembly, that's what I would do. So I think, with the coaching, start with there, look at the schools around your community, and write to the principals. I just want to come and talk to the kids about whatever topic that it is that you want to talk, because you want to train that muscle as well. You want to start training that muscle, know what your audience, who's your audience, what hits with them and what doesn't hit with them. And then just keep going. And it will grow into, you could be our next Tony Robbins, who knows?
Absolutely. So, I mean, and thank you to Karabo and Gugu
Yes.
and Patricia. Yeah, start, guys. When I started off by saying the shift has churned, and I'm telling you, the world hasn't caught up to this yet. I look at organizations and I look at them and I say, you've got 5 years to live. You're gone. Your history, banks, institutions, gone. Unless they do massive changes in terms of their behavioral approach, they're gone. Shopping malls, gone. It is predicted that in 2025, no, in 2040, I think 2045, that 95% of all purchases will be online.
Yep.
What does that do to shopping malls? They're gone. You walk in and out of shopping malls now, see what they're like. They're gone. People are ordering their stuff, pick and pay. Who goes to shop and pick and pay anymore? You can order it and it'll be delivered to your home. So the shift, there are organizations and people who haven't even realized the shift. And I'll give you a last example in terms of the perspective for me about how big the shift has, and I haven't caught up with it. Somebody said, Vic, you must write a book. Now, in my head, writing a book is like, whoo, I need to get a typewriter, I need to start clicking away, and I need to start, putting, and they said, no, you don't do that anymore. For example, if you're having a presentation, have the presentation. There are apps that can download your video presentation all the way down to audio. There are apps that can take your audio presentation and create a whole new word and type it out, send it to a copywriter, and it's done. So you're not even having, they will reorder it, rejig it, send it back to you, you look over it. You can produce a book. There's a guy who wrote 3 books in like 6 months. And I was like, well, that's unheard of, but the technology allows you to do that today. Anyone can write a book. You don't even have to go to a publisher. People can publish their own books online. There are online capabilities to publish your own books. It's amazing. So start.
I want to get to Tshego's comment. So it says, I'm very skeptical about being active on social media. I prefer to just observe. In terms of building my personal brand and sharing with the world, how will not being active on these social affect me?
Woo!
And this is what we talked about yesterday as well. You can't, you just can't not be active, and we're not saying put your entire life on social media, but what you're now doing, Tshego, is allowing others to have control over your brand or your narrative. So, you don't have, so if they walk in, they can make their own perception of what it is. But also, it's 2020. So I was saying to Vic yesterday, actually, that, I'm 26, I'm single. I don't go out on a date with somebody who's not on social media, because what are you hiding? In this day and age, as a young woman, I'm like, are you hiding your children and your 5 kids? If you're hitting on me, or are you a serial killer? What are you hiding? I need to know what is there. So even for companies as well, it's like, what what is it that you're hiding? Now we have to go and dig deeper. So it's just also moving on with the times as well.
I
This
was going
is
to
what
say
it,
that.
moving on with the times. You can't not be. It's like still having, like my dad, those old Peta Mabaka phones. It's just call and send text message. I can't even video call him now. It's like, what are we doing?
So in short, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
So there was a period of time, again in my generation, there was a period of time where we looked at things very skeptically. I'll give you an example. When the microwave first came out, it was a massive piece of technology, which we all in our generation, I think I was in my, I was at school, I looked at it like, are you crazy? Why would anyone put something in that takes 5 hours to cook and cook it in like 30 minutes? That's just mad, right? Whether we liked it or not, everybody's got a microwave, right? Yeah. So if you don't have one, you're left behind. The world continues moving with or without you. There used to be a period of time where people used to say, when cell phones first came in, I don't want a cell phone. I don't need a cell phone. I'm perfectly okay without a cell phone, And yeah, there was that period where you could maybe juxtapose and get away with it. If you are unattainable, if somebody can't dial you and reach you, you're left behind. They'll move on to the next, onto the next person. So the level of intentionality that you get into social media is determined by the level of activity that takes place. But it's like somebody today saying, you say, oh, let's have a Zoom meeting, and they say, what's Zoom? You'd be like, excuse me? How can you not know what Zoom is? So, yep. And there are people like that, people who are not necessarily understanding that this is the new way of communicating, this is the new way of engaging. You'll be left behind. So what I put to you as a process is to say, what is my intentionality on social media? Nobody's saying go onto it, to your point, every day and be, just bouncing around. But if your intentionality is to build who you are and start using it as a platform in order to make more money, make money, start making additional money, whatever the case may be, then that's when it's actually useful. Like every other tool, if you don't use it properly, it's going to come back and bite you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can use it even like as just a CV. It can be your 360, your 3D CV. So just put up 5 professional images of yourself on your Instagram that people Google you, they appear on Google, and then have your LinkedIn.
So yeah, I mean, we'll probably can take one more question if there's anybody else on the question, and we can, I'll sum up a little bit and then I'll hand over to Refilwe to sum up a little bit more and say thanks. Is there any other question? So basically what we're saying is, have the deliberate intention as early as you can to start understanding the implications of what it is that you put out there for yourself. You're not living in my age where there was nothing but one channel, one TV and one channel, right? That was it. There were no mobile phones, there was nothing. You could get away with so many things that, people would never know of until later. But you are not living in that age. You're actually living in an age where when you get up and you go into a shopping mall, there are cameras watching you. People have got dashboard cameras that are watching you. Every single time you are being recorded. And if you go into Europe and places like that, it's even more prolific. So who you are and how you represent yourself is more important than ever, because there's also technologies that can find out who you are without you even having to say something. But the fortunate advantage of these things is that there's a positiveness to it, because you can utilize all this data, all this information to become who you want to become. The days of you having to go through so many things to become who you want to become are gone. If you want to become Oprah Winfrey and have 100,000 followers, you can, and it's going to cost you near nothing. But make sure that behind everything that you do, there is the right intentionality and that you are authentic, because life, the future of life is about connections. It's about how you connect. So you talked about modeling. I went into YouTube and looked at modeling. There's like modeling streams for days. There's so many things that you can do in modeling. Now you need to start deciding, when I say modeling, do I want to model? Do I want to talk about modeling? Do I want to teach modeling? I mean, there's just so many variables in terms of that kind of career, as well as the cooking. What am I cooking? So it's massively opportunistic in terms of the future. I think it's phenomenal. And I think if you utilize who you are and start understanding who you are and make the right choices and prepare now to reap what you sow later, you can have a future that's not dependent on CVs and interviews and this, that, and the other, but dependent on who you are and what you would like to bring to the world. I like the word you used. Bring the best version of who you are, if you will, into the world.
Yep, absolutely. I think, yeah, for me in closing, I just want to say that whether you like it or not, you are a brand, whether you're being intentional or not about it, you are a brand. But why leave things to chance? Don't leave it to chance. Take control over it. Be intentional about it, because this is just the world we're living in right now. You are a brand. So that's all from my side.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Refilwe. I knew this was going to be exciting. I'm all pumped up. I'm going to when you Google me next time, it'll be a completely different face. So folks, just wanted to say thank you, Tendo, for the clap. Thank you very much. I just want to say that we are starting a program called Social Media and Personal Branding and Social Media. Thank you, Patricia. And we are going to also be starting a program called Valuepreneur, and the two will go hand in hand, because Valuepreneur is asking questions about how do I start up whatever business I want to start up, and social media, personal branding and social media is really defining the kind of things that you can do in the context of whatever it is that you're going to be entrepreneurial about. And Refilwe here is the guru, and she's starting up a program and a company that's going to actually look at this on a one-on-one basis, right? So as you progress, she's able to come into you and say, let's work on this very specifically. So those are the kind of exciting things that are coming. So thank you very much, folks. Let's see you at the next session for Value Ed. Please look out for them. We're sending them to you now in terms of communicating with you in terms of when they're going to be next. Let's enjoy that. Thanks, Ntombi. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-byes. Bye-byes.